series, but are you able to kind of start out here? And then we'll see if I get. All right, I'd like to introduce Curtis McPherson. He's the lead SOC analyst with Appalachia Technology. And I'm going to let him take it from here while I try to figure out the control issue.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Sincerely, thank you for coming in and wanting to know about a day in my life and different things about how to get into cybersecurity. So a little bit about myself. As what has been said, my name is Curtis McPherson. I'm about 40 years old. I had a long career in business and I decided I wanted to do cybersecurity, so I made a career switch. I have graduated from Penn State University with a bachelor's degree in security and risk analysis. And I concentrated in cybersecurity and digital forensics. I also have a degree in psychology, which is used in social engineering, which is a big part of cybersecurity as well. So what I'm a SOC analyst. And everybody, if you're like me, the first time I heard the word SOC analyst, they're like, what is that? So my idea was that I was like a person who had a magnifying glass and went around and checked everybody's SOCs to make sure they didn't have any snags. And then I kind of learned, no, that means Security Operations Center. And what we do is we actively monitor various tools in a computer network, or multiple networks in my case, because I work for what's called a managed services security provider, an MSSP. And we have many clients and we watch all of their networks simultaneously. So some of the tools we have, they're called a SIEM or Security Incident and Event Manager. That essentially everything that goes through a computer network comes into that program and it's analyzed. And if something comes up weird, it says, hey, here's an alarm. I need you to look into it. I think it's concerning. And then from that point on, we look at it and we determine on our own, is this a security threat or isn't it? Is it something I need to get the client involved or not? So
how do the programs know that it's a security threat?
It looks for anomalies, like networks operate in certain ways. And then when it kind of deviates from those certain activities that it's used to seeing, it throws up an alarm. I can also create rules and say, if you see this particular activity, tell me. And then it'll tell me what that it's there, and then I react on it. And there's some other terms, like we do manage endpoint protection, which is basically your antivirus software, except somebody else manages it for you. We do that. There's something called DNS monitoring, which essentially is how I tell a computer network to not allow someone to go to websites that they should not be going to. And then there's security orchestration and response, which is an automated process that says, if you see this event happen, take this action, and I don't ever have to get involved. I just have to oversee it and make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. So here we go. Meerkats. Why do I have a picture of meerkats? Well, I can tell you, meerkats are nature's best example of a security operations center. I don't know if you've ever watched any of the TV shows, Meerkat Manor or Meerkats, I think is the newest one. But at all times, they have guards or sentries watching their post on all four. Literally, they stand together back to back and they watch all four sides for threats. And as soon as a threat happens, they react, they call up a signal, everybody runs into the burrow, and then the fighters come out to take care of the threat. So they're cute. I throw them in there to give people a smile, but it does pertain to security operations centers. So what happens when a threat does occur? What do? We follow an incident response plan. We plan ahead and we say, okay, we have this type of threat. This is how we're going to react to it when it happens. Then we remove the infected device from the network so that it cannot be communicating with whatever is attacking it. We go ahead and we block attackers at something that's called a firewall, which is a hardware device that limits traffic in and out of a network. And then we continue to look through that computer and see if there's anything that is a vulnerability or any other threat. I think it's called threat hunting. The 0-day threat research, that literally is me going online and just looking to see what new threats are out there that have not been seen. A 0-day threat is a threat that nobody has seen, so nobody has a fix for it. And then, of course, we engage in client interaction and regular communication because they're paying me to do a service. I need to communicate with them about what I'm doing. It's very important. So the best way for me to tell you about a day in my life is to just take you through one of them. This is actually probably the most hair-raising experience I have had as a SOC analyst. So it was December 27th. It actually wasn't 2022. It was 2021, but that doesn't matter. In the middle of the night, I get a phone call. It's an emergency phone call. Triggered by an alarm. It's all automated. And it basically tells me we have indicators of compromise on a particular client. I had to take the client's name out of it, obviously. High priority. The source, that's the device that the client is being attacked. Then we have the destination. And I don't know if you know your international flag, that's the Russian flag. Russia is one of our biggest adversaries when it comes to cyber attacks, as I'm sure many of you have heard. It sure is, and they are smart. So I look into this a little further. I'll be honest, 95% of the alarms we get are nothing. And I research them, I close them and move on with my day. This one was not nothing. This one was serious. What was happening is that there was an attacker on the other end of the world who is behind a computer actively trying to access an email server for one of our clients. It's December 27th. They know the clients aren't working. Yeah, Christmas break. The main IT teams, they're off work. That's high time for hackers to attack. So here I am at 1 o'clock in the morning, staring at my computer in my basement. And I am the one guy that's going to stop this one Russian attacker. Talk about adrenaline. So this is just some of the information we get. The main thing that in cyber that you will learn is about an IP address. An IP address is basically every computer on the internet has an IP address. That's how when you type in www.whatever.com, it has an IP address attached to it that it goes in the background and it goes to that computer. So every computer has this address. So I can research that address to find out what kind of threats have come from it. And there you can see on the bottom right, it says that this IP was reported 814 times. Confidence of abuse is 3%. Now, I pulled this up about a month ago to create this presentation. At the actual time that this happened, that said that there were 4,000 reports and there was 99% credit confidence of abuse.
What's confidence of abuse?
Then it means that they are certain that this is an abusive IP address, that it's an attacker, it's malicious.
Have you ever had to arrest or anything like that for somebody?
I don't do that, but I do, if I need to, I do communicate with law enforcement. I have contacts with the state police and FBI, etc.
And dark web stuff like Tor browsers and that kind of thing, do they still put an IP address out too?
They still use IP addresses, but they're masked. What the Tor browser does is it literally sends it amongst thousands of routers and thousands of computers. So there are thousands of IP addresses to trace it through. So that's what makes it next to impossible.
Would that be one of those, or like couldn't be?
In this instance, it's unlikely because Tor addresses, they have a lot like if you actually use the Tor browser, a Tor web address. If you look at it, it has so many characters in it, and they use their own system.
Yeah.
So this here is basically, if I want to look at all of the threats that supposedly came from this IP address, this tells you the things that it was doing and why it was reported. So again, this was taken about a month ago, but they have server-side code injection. That's pretty bad. That means someone is putting in code from, they're entering code into your server from a remote device, essentially is what they're doing.
So the server side.
Yeah. You know, and there's a lot that in here that is kind of involved. That I would have to teach a class on cybersecurity right now to make it all understandable, but this is kind of where we get our information. At the time, everything was saying, at the actual time of the attack, all this information said that it was data exfiltration, which is they are connecting to the client and they are trying to pull their data out of their network into theirs. They're stealing the data so that they can sell it. They could use it to blackmail them. They can do a lot of things with it,
So pretty much fishing from a pool.
more or less. Although phishing is something a little bit different in the cyber world. Now, one thing about me, and then we're going to go over this a little bit later, I'm what you call a purple teamer. And that means that not only do I protect networks, I attack them. And the reason I attack them is because I want to find a hole and fix it before a malicious attacker finds it. So that you might hear called white hat hacking or ethical hacking. That's one of the functions that I am learning to do and I am doing at the moment. This here is an example of the actual attack that the attacker from Russia would have used. Essentially, it's a program. I'm not going to reveal the name because I don't want any of y'all going home and playing with it. But it's a program that's used to run exploits against the target system. With a few clicks, they can send this signal, open up a computer that's vulnerable to it, and start the attack, start pulling data.
I had no clue, like, that's hacking for something that was legal.
It's legal if you have permission.
I know, I never knew that.
Yeah, and it's fun. I'll go into that more. So I've kind of told you a little bit about what my life is like. Now I will tell you some things about my day in my life. Some days are boring. I have nothing to do. Nothing's happening. Nobody's hacking. And they're good days because on those days I research and I read and I learn. You never stop learning ever in cyber because the attackers never stop. So you're researching when you're not fighting an attacker. Other days are extremely busy. You get threat after threat after threat after threat, and you're just like, am I going to be able to eat at some point? But those are the fun days. They go quick and you learn a lot because every attack that happens is a lesson, and a lesson that you carry on to the next one. So
Or do you have an office or?
I have both. I work from home most of the time because I live far from my office. But I go into my office about once in a week to manage my team and also to interact with my coworkers because I love them.
This job lets to keep you on your toes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I have an entire home office with 5 screens.
I was gonna say, my son-in-law,
Yeah.
he has a matrix.
Yeah.
Do you have some kind of pattern? What is I know you say there's some downtime where there's nothing happening and then maybe someday it's a super. rush.
It depends what it is.
Patterns in that?
It depends what it is. Sometimes, yes. For instance, a lot of you might be aware of Microsoft Office 365. 3 months ago, we were getting a ton of alarms for people trying to log into it from multiple countries around the world from all of our clients. So that's a pattern. It's called a password spraying attack. They're basically throwing passwords at every account trying to get in. Around when the Ukraine war started, we saw a lot of attacks coming from Russia of trying to infiltrate. So you do notice some patterns. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. It's just different attacks at different times. So if you want to go into cybersecurity, if I have piqued your interest enough to say this is what I want to do, there are primarily 4 ways you can get into it. First, my route, college or university. 2, you can go to cyber boot camps. 3, you can do certifications. 4, work experience. I'll go over the pros and cons of each of them.
Do you get paid for a good amount for this job?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you get paid good for this job?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the higher paying IT careers, and the sky's the limit for the most part. The more you know, the more you make is the general rule. Yeah. So college and university, definitely the most expensive option. I can tell you from going to Penn State, it's about $8,000 a semester. What I would say is great about it though, is it provides a solid basis to begin your career. You generally work with the newest technology. Your professors are typically going to be top of the class in their field, so you're learning from the best. I can tell you, like from the point of Penn State is certified by the NSA, or the National Surveillance Agency. So you get a certificate from the NSA as soon as you graduate. And you also get valuable life experience just from being in college and living on your own, interacting with people, working in groups, because everything we do in this field is in a group of some sort. I have a team that relies on me and I rely on them. We work on projects together. I work on marketing projects with the marketing team, and you get a lot of that information from being in college. You get a lot of experience with it. You build lifelong friends also, which for the rest of your life, you may have a friend who, you know, you just sit and talk about the different things that you've seen that day and you learn from each other. Or that friend might start working at a company and they're like, hey, we have an opening. Do you want to come work with us? And it's a job opportunity. There's also alumni support. So that essentially is, you can go back to all the people that graduated from your school and you can say, hey, does anybody have openings? And they're more likely to help you because you went to the same school. Then there are cyber boot camps, such as what NewPath has. These cost less than college by far. They have a much faster time to completion. So you're looking at 6 months as compared to 4 years. They could be intense and fast paced. And they focus a lot on hands-on learning via labs or project, which is very important because you can learn everything in a book. But when it comes time to apply it to an attack, you don't really know what to do. You're just kind of like, you know, where did I read this? Can I cite it? You don't have time for that. You need to kind of know it. So the hands-on labs and projects are important.
Hands-on with it anyway.
Yeah. And then online and in-person options are important also, just to fit into your daily routine. Some people prefer being in a group, some people prefer at home. But boot camps are a great option. Then there's certifications. These can be the least expensive pathway. The primary security certification is called CompTIA Security Plus. And if you know your stuff, you can take the test. It costs $300 and be certified within an hour and a half. That's if you know your stuff. If you don't know your stuff, you have to study for it. It's entirely self-driven. It's only hands-on if you make it hands-on. No one's going to come do it for you. And these certifications can get you many entry-level positions, especially with Security Plus. But I stress on these that, like, if you fail the first time you take it, you have to pay again to take it a second time. So that's why it can be the least expensive pathway. It can also be pretty expensive. Lastly is work experience. And hey, there's no cost here. They pay you. You start out at entry level, maybe as an IT support. You work your way up using knowledge acquired on the job. The only real downfall, it can take a long time, even years, to get to where you want to go. And you kind of have to be your own advocate and tell your employer, I want to get into security and I want to look at more of the security things so that they put you into that role. So they're the kind of different ways that you can get into cybersecurity. Once you're there, what are you going to do? Well, there's there's a lot of different pathways inside cyber, but the main three are blue team, red team, and purple team. No, it's not Pokemon. You can pretend though. I mean, nobody minds. I hear Squirtle's a good hacker. Anyway, blue team is defensive security. So that's the SOC analyst portion of my job. I watch for threats. I react to them when they occur. I continue updating and patching software using the organization. I maintain their security infrastructure. And the typical personality type of someone who's a blue teamer, they're protective, they're calm, and they're observant. Protective in that you're a naturally protective person and you want to protect your networks and your clients. Calm, when you're battling with that attacker in Russia, it's good to remain calm. And observant, because you need to be able to see the little cues that have to go. That's all I have left, so. Then there's red team, primary role of that's security engineers, and they are the ethical hackers. They do the attacking. They're typically competitive because they always want to be the best. They're cunning and they're able to think like an attacker. And lastly, there's the purple team, me, a mixture of both, red team and blue team. You not only watch for systems and threats, but you try to make them come to life on your own. And you're constantly studying new attack methods to stay one step ahead. And that's it.
We don't have a lot of time for questions, so.
And I answered a lot through it, so.
Yeah, you did. That was really great. But thank you, Curtis, for being here.
You're welcome.